Hello everyone and welcome to the LSI F1.5 EU Championship. We're today for the Singapore Grand Prix, round 3 out of 12 already in the season. It's actually round 2 for the F1.5 EU Championship, round 3 for F1. We will head to Monza. That was originally meant to be the opening round of the season. That will instead be the third round of the season, and it will basically replace the break week that was meant to be next week. Then we'll just have more racing, so effectively we're just going to have 6 races consecutively, and then we will have a break week for F1.5, so that will fill in between now and Austria, as Terence is on the limit of the corner cutting situation. They're on the limit, but they might. I think they've just about got away with that one. We've got Heischler, of course, in today as a reserve driver again, and they raced in Spain, getting that P1 overall ahead of Frantic with a brilliant strategy. They're not going to be setting valid laps here in qualifying. They're going to just be trying to get an understanding of the car, of course, and then they can do whatever they want. But I've noticed that the Alpine has a bit of a bug on the front of it, and it kind of, there's a big black patch on the front of the car until the car gets into a bit more view. That must just be a bit of a graphical thing that I have got on my screen right now, and we'll see how that goes. Terence starts another lap. This is currently the driver that is highest on the grid in the championship, as Frantic doesn't race. That was a big oversteering moment, I think, there from Terence. The Red Bull moves out the way. But yeah, this is currently the highest driver in the championship order. They took a P3, as it was Frantic who took the win for the EU drivers, as they are, of course, racing crossover, so is Samaxon. And it then was Fauzi, who is a reserve driver. So currently, Terence is the highest point scorer with that P3 position to their name. And I believe they also got a fastest lap. So they currently sit in the standings with, that would be 15 points, if I'm correct in saying. So they are not too far away from Frantic at all. Only 5 points behind the current championship leader. And if they score a decent amount of points, just try and stay somewhat ahead of Samaxon, who would have scored points. Jericho Willis, of course, as well. If they can finish ahead of those guys, they will leave Singapore as the championship leader. And that is Terence completing that lap. He's got to make sure he doesn't cut too many more corners, otherwise they will be in a spot of bother. Unfortunately, they've cut quite a few now, so I think they might be in a little bit of trouble. We'll try and move away from that right now and hope that that doesn't happen again. But Jericho Willis got a good amount of points last time around, was up the front for a while, but then just couldn't hold on to the top runners and dropped back a little bit later on. But now P5 is where they currently stand. Are they having to go into the pit lane? I think they are having to go into the pit lane, as although they were on a lap, they've just invalidated a little bit too late in the lap, and that means that they will not be able to set this or next lap. So they go into the pit lane and instead go for fresh tyres and more fuel rather than just going out one more time. We have got one RB invalid. That is Brothers Cool. Welcome to LSI, as well as Rare Winter, who is a regular in the F1.5, or not F1.5, the LSI practice lobbies. We saw Brothers Cool, of course, also in a practice lobby, but now they are both racing. Finally, it is good to see them on the grid right here. Both teammates very loosey-goosey over the rear end at turn 7. They managed to keep it together, and we'll see what they can do as they go over the sector lines. They've actually long gone past the first sector line, so we will watch on board until they get to the third sector and see what the current lap time is looking like. We've got Verve as a reserve driver, but a current tier reserve driver, more importantly, in the Ferrari today. Great to see them in the car, but it's been a long time coming as well. We've wanted to see them drive, but just haven't had the ability to until now. It's currently a tenth down, unfortunately, for Rare Winter, 27.4, so not having the best of times. I think they are actually on a cooldown lap anyway. Yeah, I think they are on a cooldown lap, so making a bit of a fuss out of nothing, but a fuss out of something is Verve, who's just managed to take a improvement on their current pole time at 26.967, and that is going to be just over a tenth on Simaxon right there for Singapore pole. That could be very nice for them right now. We see Pepe in for the league. I believe this is for the first time, if not second or third time, but I believe this is for the first time at all, I think. Anyway, good to see them on the grid in the McLaren car. Both McLarens running drivers this time around in Singapore. Slight bit of lag. Hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a problem for the other cars out on track. It may just be a bit of lag for us visually from the spectators booth, as they are very loosey-goosey over the rear. They've actually got a bit of front wing end plate damage, but they're still setting these laps right now on this soft tyre, just setting multiple laps to get a feel of the car, and maybe they'll come into the pit lane for a final timed run, which could be a good plan if they don't have too much experience around this circuit in recent times. Jericho Willis is once again out on track after their slight little invalidation that they had. And they are ready to go once again for a time lap. We'll see what they can get done in the Williams here this evening. Of course, F1.5 is expected to be slightly slower on the lap times compared to our race yesterday, which was a phenomenal one, so do go and check that out. As a higher tier driver, Heister was racing in that one, managed to take pole and convert it into a victory in a very, very dramatic fashion. It was an awesome race, and make sure you go and check that out. But it still doesn't mean that we can't have good races and good fighting around this circuit in this tier. Of course, we have Jericho Willis going very, very on the edge as they come through the first few corners. Now they're going to go to the sector line and look at what their lap time will be according to their previous. It's going to be just under 2/10 improvement. They will be able to get to the 27s. They need a little bit more time if they want to get to the first Racing Bull car, but they'll need a bit more if they want to try and get to that P3 spot. So 2/10 in the first sector. They travel through the middle sector very close, if not tapping the entry as they entered turn is at 10, I believe. I would just need to check that in a few moments time. They go through the hairpin. That's 13 towards turn 14. Down on the energy as you're supposed to. They're really using all the tactics that you can in this F1 game. They'll go back up to overtake and hot lap mode for the final little stretch. Just make sure they don't go below 20% and lose out too much. They've probably gone just slightly under 20%, which is still going to be quite quick. They clout the inside curve in the final chicane, miss the second one to get the better traction, and out the final few corners, what's it going to be for Jericho Willis? It won't be a position, but it will be so close. Almost 4/10 improvement right there from the Williams driver. They gave it a very, very good shot. They won't have another go. They might be able to save and go for a second run, but yeah, that is that one done for now, and they gave it an awesome shot. Now Zora and Terence are both on out laps. The Canadian driver on their way after... Did they miss the Spanish Grand Prix? I believe they did. So this will be their first race, unless I'm completely missing something. I believe they wanted to race in Monza, but yeah, they couldn't make it to Spain, but now they are finally here and they're in that lovely orange car. That is Heister retiring or disqualifying themselves so they can start at the very back of the pack, even though they are already there, but just disqualifying themselves, make sure that they kind of guarantee themselves at the back right there. Hopefully they won't cause, the AI won't cause any problems, and I don't believe it has done, so I would just double check on that. And no, there are absolutely no issues. We're all good. And Heischler will be starting in P9 for this race, of course, not setting a qualifying lap time so far. And so far, so good. Now, Verf comes out of the pit lane once again to see if they can defend their current pole time. Simaxon looking to try and take this away in the Red Bull. They've got a race experience or a race distance under their belt yesterday in the Racing Bull. It's still the same engine, just a slightly different livery, maybe a slightly different chassis as well, which could feel slightly different. In this game, you do get a little bit of a difference in car feeling, not necessarily necessarily a massive performance change, but it is just a difference in feeling. And of course, there is a little bit of placebo effect as well, so it really depends on preference, but things can change as some people really can't drive with a car like the Sauber or the Williams is quite a loose car, whereas something like the Mercedes is a very, very stable and planted car. At least from my experience, other people may say completely different things. Verf is coming around the final few corners, and they're going to see what they can do for the final time in qualifying. Simaxon pushing the limits to open up their lap right here as they will follow on, and we will get to see the top two in qualifying go at it almost side by side. Simaxon, is this maybe a kind of intimidation game? They know that they can improve on their current lap time, and they just want to be in the mirror of Verf right behind. They're going to go through the first few corners. Through turn 5 on the DRS, nice and smooth, using some of the energy, using a lot of the energy as they go down the straight, as they realise that they can save it in this middle sector, or middle sector of the circuit, where it all goes a little bit slower, getting the car turned in. A lot of lag, unfortunately, but as I said, hopefully it will look different to the drivers out on track. They go into turns 9, 10, 11, 12. The Singapore sling section, and then over the bridge. Nice and smooth, opening up the steering into the hairpin, using everything on the right hand side, and then second gear on the traction as smooth as you can to not lose it too much. Jericho Willis will not get another lap, neither will Pepe, unfortunately. That is going to be their session done. Bit of understeer there for Verf. They might lose a bit of time if they're not careful. We'll see them go through the next stages. They've used a little bit too much energy. They'll lose slight bits of pace in these final sections of the circuit, but it's just going to be up to the line. And the moment of truth for the Ferrari driver. Will they be able to improve and defend their pole position? They do improve by almost 4/10. Simaxon will not be able to get there, but they gave it a very good shot. 0.8 in the end. That is 3/10 of a margin. Raya Winter looking to try and improve as Terence splits the two racing balls. And we currently have Bread is Cool giving his teammate a bit of a slipstream. Clouts the curb to try and minimise track distance to see what they can do here in Singapore for the final time. Will they be able to try and push down Simaxon? Is that going to be at all possible? They got a lovely toe. They do carry a lot more speed because of that. Maybe hitting the wall right there, unless that was lag. Round the final corners, what's it going to be for the racing ball? It's going to be 3/10 improvement, but it won't be a position in the end. An awesome job. Terence will be in that P4 and will not be improving. Bread is Cool crosses the line after helping their teammate, and they made that a P5 in the end. Jericho Willis, of course, not able to set a lap from earlier on. Zora will finish the session in a dramatic fashion, and Pepe in P8 in the end. But this is your pole sitter on debut as a reserve driver. Simaxon looking for some good points, however, from being a front runner from early on in the Spanish Grand Prix, making a mistake and not getting the result that they wanted. They now have a great opportunity. Without Frantic around them, they can possibly take victory here. They do have a Ferrari as a reserve driver, however, to fight with, which is going to be an interesting one. We'll get the results on our screen in a few moments' time just to make sure everything is confirmed, and then we will head to a slight break as the drivers get themselves set up, their strategies and their fuel loads, etc., ready for the race. 31 laps of Singapore. Verf takes pole position, Simaxon in P2, then we've got Rare Winter in P3. That's the rest of the grid. We'll go through the race director just in case. And then we will be back for the race. We will see you in a bit. Ready. Hold. Go! Who's going to get it into turn one? That is Heischler jumping the start off the line. What a shame for them. It's Verve looking to try and take pole, but no! Simaxon will take a swooping P1 into the first corner. Absolutely perfection as Terrence is trying to get a move. They were lagging a little bit as they lost the car, I believe, but that was an awesome start there from the Red Bull driver. They currently are on the medium tyre. Verve, I believe, is going to be on the same. No, they're on the hard tyre. That would explain a big difference, and that is a crucial maneuver from the Red Bull driver. They make that work. That's what exactly they needed if they want to try and use the medium tyres to their advantage. Terrence retires in the early stages. I do not believe it. A virtual safety car is already deployed, as that is a big shunt on the exit of turn 8 right there. An interesting place. You don't usually see that, especially on the opening stages, unless I missed something and they were side by side with another car. It is only a virtual safety car, so we will probably be going racing before we get to the pit lane, as that was Verve going very, very loose on the exit of turn 13, the hairpin. So they've got to be careful that that doesn't happen too much. But yeah, the hard tyres for the Ferrari driver. We're going to get the details on the screen right now. That is a drive-through for Heischler and also Pepe, as they maybe reacted to one another. I don't know who would have been the one to do it first, but that definitely changes things. They might be able to storm to the pit lane and serve that drive-through penalty, which would be very wise to do so. Heischler is going to go into the pit lane now. Green flags will be on their way soon, and they are actually going to get a decent situation. They would have had to probably wait a little bit. That is going to be a drive-through penalty for Jericho Willis for unfortunately speeding in the pit lane, which is not something you see very often. You can't serve your speeding pit lane, your jump start drive-through or any drive-through under safety car conditions in the F1 game. So actually Heischler and Pepe have served that to perfection to be able to go into the pit lane, not lose too much time as they go in on entry, and still get that drive-through done. That is how it goes. That is how to serve a drive-through penalty if you have to. And Jericho Willis, what a shame for them on the restart of the virtual safety car, but a brilliant job here for Simaxon, and they have to make this tyre work right now. Rare Winter is looking to try and challenge that Ferrari car. By lap 6 yesterday, we saw this medium tyre start to switch up on pace, and it meant that the hard tyre was quicker by quite some margin, and they were able to catch up massively. So if Verve can just try and hold on, maybe not fight Rare Winter too hard, they're going to be in a good position for later on in this Grand Prix. Of course, they have to go for the medium tyres at a later stage of the Grand Prix, which is slightly frustrating, of course, because they'll lose a bit of pace towards the end. But it still is a very good situation if they can keep everything good. They have a lighter car on that medium tyre. It will be faster in general, and they might be able to make the car or the tyres last a little bit longer if the car is slightly lighter. There's an invisible air wall. Oh, I didn't realise that. So that must have been on the exit or mid-turn 8 or something. Hopefully we can get a replay after the race and see what happened there. But that is really disappointing. And unfortunately it is a bug that is only happened to one driver. So I don't know what happened. I got tapped by the wall, then my front left wheel broke. That's an unfortunate situation right there. I'm sorry, Mars. I do apologise. I appreciate what you've done, you and Terrence, but yeah, that is really tough. That is not the way you want it to go. Around a circuit like this as well, which can be so rewarding if you get it right, and if you don't get it wrong but still lose out, that's heartbreaking. And that's what you see from Terrence, unfortunately, which is such a shame. We don't ever want to see that. Hopefully we can get on top of that. I might be able to report that incident if I can, whether that be on the EA forum or not, I don't know, but we'll see how that goes, of course. But yeah, a big shame there for Terrence, and that's how How sometimes it ends quite early on in a race and you don't score any points where you really should have probably deserved to. So Terence will not be leading the championship after today's race. After all, they just needed to score a few more points, 5 more points to be exact, and they would have probably been, well, actually 6 points to be leading the championship, which would have been very possible, but now it's not going to happen. We continue, lap 4 out of 31. Simaxon leads the way, and they are trying to maintain the gap over Verf, who is currently very close to DRS, but not quite there. Doing everything that they need to right now. They do need to try and extend a little bit more. If they can't extend this much, then they have to do a bit of a defensive masterclass later on. Now, we've got Rare Winter incredibly close to the back of Verf. We've got his teammate also with DRS sitting right behind. The 2 British drivers are looking to try and have a go on the Hungarian driver as well. Can they get the job done? They are going to be communicating with one another, I'd assume, so it will be a bit of a tag team situation, but it does show that Brothers Call does need to try and catch up a little bit more if they want to make a move and maybe work together as a team. But losing the rear end, both of these cars are quite loosey-goosey. Earlier on, we saw Verf have those issues. Just a moment ago, we saw Rare Winter have quite a difficult situation. I switched to hards, but why? I guess they're just trying to do a bit of a severe undercut. Obviously, they had to serve that drive-through, which is really frustrating, but I think they're looking to do a severe undercut and take the hards to the end of the race, which you can do. Safety cars could be a factor later on, so it might be that they can go onto a set of mediums later on, of course, but it looks like they're doing an undercut. And if they have the pace, they won the race yesterday, they could possibly gain quite a few positions. Later on, their pace would be slightly off, but yeah, we'll see. We'll actually look at the gap for their sake to see how it is. 51 seconds to the other cars. If they fight, it could definitely help Heischler's race. He is a higher tier driver ultimately, so it doesn't really make a difference for the point system, of course. Now, Verf has got a lot of pressure right here from Rare Winter, but not losing too much time compared to Simaxon. Simaxon's got about 2 laps left of these tyres, and then that hard tyre will start to only get faster in this Grand Prix, according to the data that we saw yesterday. Unless the drivers treat their tyres differently, then it will be the case for these guys as well. Swooping the rear end through the corners. Not easy to deal with, but both Racing Bulls get the job done, and also, of course, Verf having that issue. 2-second margin now is for Simaxon. They extend their lead a little bit more, as they know they need to. Verf has a lot of confidence in that first sector, though, gaining about 3/10, of course. Now we go to the straight. Simaxon might be able to use a bit of battery, not got too much available in that car. 1.6 seconds as the Ferrari is incredibly quick, breaks away from the cars behind slightly and does catch up massively to Simaxon. Catches about, what is that, 4 or 5/10 to the race leader within the last kind of half a lap. So maybe the tyres dropped off a little bit earlier than I thought. It's very sudden from the medium tyre. It's just the way it goes, and it's incredibly frustrating to deal with. But now this Ferrari will come alive and will show its advantages. And we will finally see, is the medium hard going to be superior, or will the hard medium be the superior tyre? That hard tyre is going to be absolutely lethal towards the end when the car is nice and light as well, of course, but a light, fresh medium tyre runner will be incredibly quick as well. It just depends on when Verf does decide to make a pit stop. Are they going to go for a pit stop on lap 36? Lap 35? Or are they going to maybe go on a different lap a little bit too early or a little bit too late? Would they even try and go for the softs, which I think would be probably quite difficult? Rare Winter loses DRS to Verf in the meantime, as they are pushing quite a lot. Maybe a bit of a mistake to see that 2.1 second gap be so big. It means that Brothers Cool catches up massively and now is right on the back of their teammate, possibly ready to make an overtake if they are willing to. Do they have the energy? They do, and they will go for the move. Oh, no, 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 no. They weren't ready to move across to the circuit. I think they wanted to go to the left-hand side, as that was then Winter moving left to allow their teammate to go through. They switched a little bit and just lost the rear, which you don't see every day around Singapore when the wings are so high. You're running more or less about 50-50 wings, unless they're really low on the wings. That would explain it, but just really having problems, I'd assume. Those rear-end tyres must be pretty slippy, and we're going to see that from many drivers. Simaxon still currently holds on to the DRS margin and doesn't allow Verf to get there just yet. Verf has got a few more corners to try and catch up. They're trying to see if they can use a little bit of the energy to get that DRS. They've got so much to play with, so they're currently just messing around, not messing around, but they're currently just pacing themselves quite nicely. They don't need to push themselves any more than they have to. Of course, DRS is available on the limit, of course, with 9/10, but it is what it is, you know. They got the job done. They didn't need to worry or push any more than that. They also have no pressure from the cars behind us. Rare Winter takes it to the pit lane. As expected, you can go longer on a medium tyre. Pace-wise, you kind of want to pit earlier and you can go for a long, long time. But they are going for the medium tyre, which is an interesting choice. They go for a second set. It's going to be Bredder's Call also into the pit lane. This one will be on the hards, though. So that is the tyre to go for, with a new front wing as well to help out. Jericho Willis will make that move ahead of Bredder's Call, and they get an overtake that they haven't seen in a while, of course, from previously getting that drive-through penalty earlier on. Now, there's no damage to that racing bull, so I am slightly confused at why they went for that medium tyre, but maybe they're looking to try and do something about it later on. Maybe there could be a safety car that could be deployed. We've got 8 cars out on track right now. We see Verf very close to the back of the race leader since the first corner. Simaxon has taken the lead of this Grand Prix, but it could change within the next half a lap, maybe even whole lap, if he can hold on for that little bit longer. But that hard tyre is looking very, very quick right now. It's going to be virtually impossible to try and catch up or even make a move. Of course, with track position being the advantage. But if you've got as much energy as you do have if you are Verf, then it's a little bit of a different story. Not entirely sure if they went over track limits right there. A bit of lag from our side. Simaxon is going to possibly see their lead be swapped around as the Ferrari is looking to try and go for the move. They go to the right-hand side. Simaxon to the inside line. Are they going to try and outbrake? No. They brake early and let the Ferrari go. The Ferrari wasn't ready for it. They rode the curb on the outside and lost a bit of time. So that Red Bull could possibly hold on to the DRS range here and lose a little bit of, or kind of get a bit of damage limitation on this tyre, which is the advantage of starting on the medium. If you can hold on to the DRS of a hard tyre that only gets quicker and quicker, then you can lose less time than you would have if you were maybe not in the DRS, of course, because that's just kind of inevitable. They lost the car as they went into the hairpin. They do hold on to DRS just about, so they do catch back up a little bit of time, but they're going to have to try and power with the energy if they want to get that DRS again, or they just make a call and go into the pit lane. That DRS, as I said, will be very useful if they can just hold on a little bit more. It would help them lose less time than they would have before. Whereas if you start on the hard tyre, when those tyres do start to drop off, you won't get such an advantage. That being said, it could be flipped the other way around. If you're on the hard tyre and you're not quite up to pace at the start, if you're in a train, you're possibly going to lose less time from being on that tyre initially because you are in the train. Verf didn't actually have DRS. I don't know if it was at all really from Simaxon. They might have had it on lap 2 momentarily, but that would have been it, if at all, of course. So that didn't really make much of a difference to the Ferrari car. But that is DRS lost now, so Simaxon is probably going to have to make a bit of a decision whether they go into the pit lane or not. Zora not pitting yet on that medium tyre either. Rare Winter will be catching up to that car. Jericho Willis in P5. Then Bread is cool. Quite a distance behind Jericho as they are on fresh hard tyres. They will be catching up, of course, but they had to get that wing repaired. In the meantime, Heisler has managed to catch up nicely, of course. They are on that very fresh, decent hard tyre right now. They do have DRS as well of the car ahead, and they will be catching massively. He's got a lot of experience around this circuit, and he knows how to win as well. Pepe, a little bit further behind, not made a pit stop just yet. Same as Yoko, actually, which I didn't quite point out a moment ago. But currently sitting in P8. They are 13 seconds behind Heisler, but they're still in this race, more importantly, and would be able to score points. 7th place points it would be for them, as Heisler is a higher tier driver. I do want to quickly apologise for the frame drops that we may be experiencing on the live stream. Unfortunately, there's not really much I can do about it, so I do apologise. Now, we had a time penalty there for Rare Winter, as they try and find their way through. Zora pushing all the way to the limit. They go to the inside line. Zora's defending, pulling them all the way to the inside. It's going to be the racing line, however, as they go fully ahead, does the Racing Bull. Will Zora try and fight back? It was pushing the Racing Bull all the way up to the line, and they went a little bit too far as they were looking left and right to see if they could find a way through, and that is probably why they got that time penalty. Zora gets the DRS, but they've got no ERS to play with. They will catch up a little bit by the time they get to the end of turn 7, but they won't be able to gain any more than that. They go into the corners now. They have not so fresh tyres compared to their rival, of course, and it will definitely change. Don't count Rare Winter out, though. Of course, time penalties will be a factor later on for a lot of drivers in this Grand Prix. Again, more frame drops, and I really do apologise for this. Hopefully we don't get any more, but yeah, it is what it is. There's not really much we can do about it at the moment. Alrighty. That's how that goes. Simax on 1.6 seconds and still not going into the pit lane right now. So, are they looking for a different kind of strategy, or are they just not willing to go to that hard tyre? It's an interesting call right here from the Polish driver. What they want to do, I don't quite know. Verf is pushing a little bit. They're on half battery at the moment. Not pushing a massive amount, but they are pushing slightly. To try and make sure that they make use of this hard tyre. They've got a long way to go on this white wall tyre, so they've got to make sure that they just keep it consistent and don't collide with the wall, and they will be good to go on that faster tyre later on. Of course, Simaxon really should start thinking about going for that severe undercut. They have got effectively a whole pit stop to the car behind. They're only going to lose more and more time as Rare Winter is on that fresh tyre. That being said, Rare Winter, as tyres, they will start to get a little bit dodgy. That is going to be Heisler looking for the move on the inside of Bread is Cool. It's not going to be so easy to get through. However, DRS will be available for that Alpine, and they'll head to turn 7. That Alpine to the inside line as well will get an advantage. They're very close as he goes defensive to try and throw that Red Bull Racing Bull to the inside line, but then they just don't have the momentum as the DRS is way too powerful right there, and they're going to have to wait behind if they are able to go again. They are on the fresher tyres, but you're racing against the race winner of the F1 tier, who is going to be absolutely rapid right now. British School not losing too much time behind Heisler, so could work together with the Dutchman to see if they can try and catch maybe a little bit more time. That being said, Heisler does make a mistake. DRS will be available, ERS will be available, as these guys will once again switch positions, but they are going side by side to try and fight, interestingly. Not what I expected. Slight mistake again for Heisler, so they do ghost with one another, defending quite hard to the inside line to try and stay ahead. Is the Alpine, as the Racing Bull will allow that to happen, but again, just has to try and abide by Eichler being ahead, they can't really push. They weren't losing too much on the exit of 7 going into the hairpin, but on the exit of the hairpin, that Alpine did have a bit of a mistake on their hands, which did lose them a bit of time collectively. 16 seconds now, so the gap does change very slightly. Jericho, Willis and Zora are now very close to one another. Drive-through penalty from Jericho, of course. Also a drive-through penalty. No, that was Pepe. It wasn't the McLaren of Zora. But these guys are on equal tyres. That is a yellow, as unfortunately Brothers Cool was pushing maybe a little bit too hard to try and get ahead of the Dutchman, or maybe even into turn 7. They just tried to make the move and there was a bit of contact. They lost the car. I don't quite know. We'll have to look at that one later on. Heischer now tries to catch up to Jericho and Zora up ahead, and they do so in the meantime. Brothers Cool is also going to have to try and recoup and then get back into this race a little bit later on. If they can, it's going to be a move to the inside here for the Williams. There's contact as they try and pull back to the left slightly, as Zora didn't want to do it, as they make a big mistake, lose the front end of the car, and they're going to have to be very careful now, as that car is incredibly twitchy. And someone who has done something about that is Simaxon, who's gone into the pit lane for a fresh set of hard tyres. So this is where it all starts to come alive. Simaxon makes that call. Verf, when will they go into the pit lane? As I said, it will probably be about lap 25, according to the way the tyres work and when they die. But according to the way that others are pushing their tyres to a little bit of a longer life, maybe we could see Verf actually go into the pit lane maybe within the next few laps, maybe even lap 20. It could be possible. I don't quite know what they'll be looking for, but Simaxon is going to be good to go to the end of the Grand Prix. They're going to be in DRS already of Rare Winter. That's just showing how quick that hard tyre is, and how that medium just drops off when you get to around about lap 6, which is very frustrating to deal with. But Simaxon just needs to try and get ahead of Rare Winter as soon as they can and start making progress on the undercut of Verf. Will Verf go into the pit lane within the next few laps to try and make a bit of a decision? I don't quite know, but in my opinion, they've got to wait a little bit longer if they want to make this situation work for themselves. DRS available for Simaxon into the first corner. It would be a very unorthodox way of making a move. Of course, it's probably best to wait for turn 7. That longer DRS zone will help you out massively, as they're going to be right behind their rival from earlier on in this Grand Prix. Of course, DRS, ERS will be available, and it's going to be fought slightly, it looks like, on the energy from the Racing Bull. They do go to the middle of the circuit to try and force the Red Bull to go slightly on the inside, but they clear the Racing Bull. The Racing Bull tried to have a go at maybe looking back and scare the Red Bull into a mistake, but it is how it goes, and that is the situation as it stands. Rare Winter very close to the wall on exit. They managed to keep it together, so well done indeed for them doing that. Could they hold on to DRS and lose a little bit less time on this current tyre, this current strategy? They do hold on to DRS for now, but they won't be in a position to overtake at all. DRS will be flicked open for the final time that is likely for Rare Winter, as that hard tyre isn't just going to be so quick. No disrespect to Rare Winter, of course, it is just going to be so quick. That hard tyre is unbelievable. 1.2 seconds is the advantage that they will get. A few games ago, the softs were absolutely awesome. The mediums were then the best for the last couple of F1 games, whereas the softs were virtually useless. Last game, the hards were absolutely horrible to drive, although we still had to use them. Now, the mediums are basically dying off almost a little bit like a soft tyre would, and the hards are just so quick. They may not be the quickest on outright pace, of course, initially, but looking at the kind of all the facts, the distance and the pace that you can get out of them overall at any circuit is just such an advantage. That is going to be a yellow for Pepe. It is, unfortunately, as they exit the hairpin. They are at risk of getting lapped right now. However, Verf, they are currently, of course, not on a pit stop situation right now. So that is actually, I believe, Bread is Cool here actually being lapped by Verf so far, but Verf has to make that pit stop, of course, within the next few laps. That's a 3-second, unfortunately, for Heischler right now. Will we see a pit stop? We see a pit stop from Pepe, who is going to, unfortunately, speed into the pit lane. I wanted to say go for a fresh set of tyres, but I maybe was a little bit too early right there. Bread is Cool goes fastest right now as they start making good progress on this tyre. They've gone for that medium tyre. They got off of the hards, not happy with it at all. But Simaxon is making some progress on the race leader, 24.8, 24.7. Will they get to 24.6 by the end of the straight? Looks like they might do. Into the first corner they do so, and they are catching up quite a decent amount now. Rare Winter not able to hold on with this tyre situation. Pepe will be just ahead of them as they leave the pit lane. We've got Heischler in P4 at the moment, just ahead of Zora, who is still trying to go as long as they possibly can on this medium tyre. They haven't boxed just yet. They are going really, really long. So it will be, I assume, the hards to the end, unless they're really going to try and make the softs work. At this stage, going as long as they are, it might be an attempt to, but those tyres, as you can see, they are absolutely a pig to deal with at the moment, and they could even risk getting a puncture, whereas the hard tyres, you just basically don't have any issues all the way from lap 1 if you were able to, of course, not pit in the race, which is just incredible. You don't really expect that. That is Heischler going off at the exit of turn 7. But still maintaining a decent advantage and not allowing Zora to get within DRS range. In the meantime, we see Simaxon make it a 23.6 second gap, so they've gained about a second since we last checked in on the Red Bull driver. That's just under a lap, I believe, if I'm correct in saying, but still not going into the pit lane, however. So they still want to try and make this work. That is another yellow. That is going to be Zora. It is going to be a virtual safety car. I don't believe we'll see a pit stop here from Verf, though, because the safety car will probably go in by that point, of course. It is going to be Rare Winter into the pit lane again for another set of tyres. Heischler also could make this call if the virtual safety car is still out. It's going to be a soft tyre for the Racing Bull, which is an interesting call this early on. The softs won't be able to go that long, at least they won't be able to go that long safely, but it wouldn't be impossible to try and drag them all that way if you really pushed it to the limit, of course. But yes, it is going to be a pit stop here for Heischler as they take the opportunity with the yellow flags being to their advantage. They will end this race on this medium tyre earlier than they would have liked to pit, but they get a front wing change more importantly. And there is the green flag, and we want to be going racing. Zora, unfortunately, onto the intermediate tyre, which is not what we want to see. Hopefully they can go back into the pit lane and get that sorted within the next few laps. That is a bit of a mistake there from Heischler on the pit exit, as those tyres are very, very cold, despite being grippier than the ones that they've just been on. But now they try and see if they can catch back up. Now these mediums will be able to go to the end, but they are going to be absolutely rapid at the beginning, but dead towards the later part of this race, of course. So they've got to watch out that they don't go and put it in the wall for that reason. But we'll see how it goes in a few moments' time. That is the race leader into the pit lane for a fresh set of medium tyres. And look at the overcut or undercut that Simaxon currently gets. That is an absolutely monumental overcut that they take over the Ferrari driver. That could be 5 seconds by the time that Ferrari has got those tyres warmed up. That is going to be, it's not going to be 5 seconds actually, it's just going to be about 4.5. So not losing as much as I thought, but still losing quite a lot of time. Verf has not only now got to try and overtake Simaxon, they've got to get ahead and then break away a little bit, because those tyres will die off. They've got to catch 4 seconds first before they can even think about that. These tyres are going to be very quick, however, so they will have the ability to catch up, but they'll be in DRS, and then if there is a bit of a defensive masterclass from the Red Bull driver, it's going to be very difficult for Verf to be able to actually make that pit stop work. Those tyres are going to be in a difficult situation. They're going to be doing, what is that? 12 laps, 13 laps on these tyres, which seemed a bit standard compared to what others were doing, of course, but it is still going to be quite difficult. Alrighty, rare winter on that soft tyre. Is that what I think it is? Is it rain? We'll go on board and see. It is rain on the car right now. It's going to be a wet end to this Grand Prix, it looks like. Verf, in the meantime, catches up massively. Being on the soft tyre may not actually be such a bad idea. The cooler the track conditions, the cooler the tyres, the softer the compound. So right now, a soft tyre will be very quick, as it should be naturally anyway, but it'll be even quicker on a wet surface compared to the other tyres, other slick tyres, of course, unless we get to the inters. And that's why Zora has gone to that intermediate tyre earlier on. I thought that was a mistake, but no, it is a legitimate decision as they go side by side with the racing ball. They exit with DRS being available to that blue car, and that is Brothers School trying to have a go using the energy. It looked like Zora trying to fight it, but they won't be able to fight it into the braking zone and will have to back off. That is a 10-second time penalty for Heischer speeding the pit lane, but it looks like it will be an intermediate tyre for more cars right now. So those guys have pitted one stop too much, unfortunately, not waiting long enough. I have a feeling that people didn't realise that this was going to happen in this race. Now, Simuxon leads the way, of course, could make that call to go into the pit lane, and then Verf will probably follow in. They'll still maintain that lead, and they will be on equal tyres. Are they going to go into the pit lane? No, they're going to stay out. Now, this makes it very interesting. Is this rain going to be heavy enough? And is it going to go away as we get to the closing stages of this Grand Prix? I don't quite know. Usually it doesn't take up much rain to make it necessary to need to go into the pit lane because you lose so much time if you don't go on to a wet compound tyre, but if it is incredibly light, which it looks like it is right now, then you might be okay. Nice and dry as you go down the main straight towards turn 7, because there is a little bit of a bridge that creates a dry patch for the circuit. Everything grips up in that regard, of course. It's still going to be very difficult. So not only is Vert's tyres going to be difficult to manage, they're going to now be difficult to manage with wet conditions on a completely smooth, slick, orange or yellow wall tyre right now. 2 seconds now to the car ahead. They are absolutely rapid compared to that Red Bull car, but we might see a pit stop from either both of these drivers or just one of them. It would make sense to see both cars into the pit lane if one does go in. We just don't quite know. Simaxon will be the one to make the call, of course. They don't go into the pit lane. Verf could give it a risk and try and make it a stop. They would come out, I believe, just a little bit behind Rare Winter, so they'd have to try and make a move ahead of the RB. That is a big correction there from Verf as he almost cut the corner, looking to try and gain DRS that still seems to be available. If I'm correct in saying, I don't believe we've had a notification that it's been turned off. We will see if that is the case once Verf is within DRS range, of course. And they will be on the next straight. That is Heischer getting another 3-second time penalty. Rare Winter also doing the same thing. Intermediate tyres for, of course, Zora and Heischer at this stage. Are they going to be going in for slick tyres at some point? I don't quite know. That is going to be a racing ball. That will be Bredders Core, unfortunately, having an issue as they go through the Singapore Sling section. It will not be a yellow flag. It will be a possible lapping opportunity for the top 2 that are fighting for the victory right here. And I want to have a quick look at the gap to the leader. I do apologise for going that. The gap to the leader right now is at 1 minute 31 for Heischler. Are they catching on these wet conditions? It looks like they are. We'll go into the corner sections and see if that is the case. Now, Verf will catch up and get DRS range off the Red Bull car, but the Red Bull will get DRS immediately off of the lapped car of Red Bull. So quite frustrating for Verf. They won't be able to catch as much as they did, but they cut the corner. They went a little bit too hard over that curb, and it is slowly getting heavier and heavier on the rain. What I think must have happened right there is that they have tried to get the car slowed down, then turn in. Now, because their car is a lot slower, the turn-in was a little bit more. They're looking to try and attack right here, but they weren't quite able to make this move, and they're going to have to back off. Are the conditions currently getting wetter? We see Pepe go into the pit lane for the Inters, but we see Bredescool going for the soft tyre. So they're not convinced that it's going to be wet enough towards the end of this Grand Prix to actually need to be on the intermediates right there. Simaxon, it's the one to make that call, really. If Verf goes into the pit lane, then the Red Bull is probably not going to go into the pit lane. If Simaxon goes into the pit lane, then I mean, if the time penalties weren't so difficult, then I would say Verf would probably go to the pit lane. But with the situation on the time penalties, I think the Ferrari driver would actually end up staying out as they make a little bit of contact with the wall. Hopefully that's not damage. We don't want to see the race be affected by that. We are able to continue now as it all gets very tricky, and looking to the outside line and going defensive is Simaxon. Verf having a go, putting the pressure on the Red Bull driver as they are to the inside line. It's going to be a pit stop right there. An incredibly late call from the Red Bull. They will make it an intermediate tyre, I believe. Verf is going to try and stay out. Are they going to try and stick it out to see if they can try and take the victory against the odds on the slick tyre in the wet conditions, and of course with the time penalty? But they're currently crawling around the circuit. Simaxon to the intermediate. Will they lose the position to Rare Winter? They will not, because Rare Winter's had maybe a bit of an issue. I don't quite know, but they seem to be struggling on this soft tyre right now. Maybe looking like an intermediate tyre for them. They will go for that intermediate tyre. So that is a call. That is definitely a changing point as everyone is finally going for the Inters. You can see Verf is struggling massively and is just going to lose a huge amount to the net race leader now. DRS is finally disabled, and usually in the F1.23 game, at that point when it tells you DRS is disabled, you will then go into the pit lane. This game is a little bit different, and I think you have to make the call a little bit earlier on. Still, not losing a massive amount of time at the moment, but Simaxon's only going to get quicker throughout the lap, and Verf will lose a huge amount of time and has to still make back for that 3-second time penalty that they currently have. They're not going to be able to stay out towards the end of the Grand Prix here. That is a yellow. That will be for Zora, who gets a bit of front wing damage, unfortunately, and they're going to have to go once again into the pit lane. So yeah, that is a difficult situation for Zora right there. Not what we really want to see. But yeah, I do apologise for that. Anyway, hopefully they don't bring out a safety car, because that would be very, very disappointing to the race that we currently have on our hands. Zora will go into the pit lane for a front wing repair and an intermediate tyre. That is going to be Simaxon doing a good job to get ahead of Pepe. They'll get not DRS, they would have maybe got a slingshot on some distant tow, but nothing too much about that. Alright, Verf leads the way. They stay out. They're convinced that they can stay ahead for long enough and have a 3-second time penalty advantage over Verf. They're not convinced that this is going to get any wetter. Their rear end says otherwise. 20.2 seconds from 21 seconds just a few moments ago. That is incredibly difficult to drive in a straight line right now as they're gliding through the corners and just understeering a little bit and oversteering on exit. They're surely going to have to make a pit stop right here. It's not going to be what they want to do. It's going to lose them the lead of the Grand Prix, and the time penalties are of course not in their favour. It's going to make it incredibly disappointing and heartbreaking from pole position, but Simaxon, who took the lead in the opening stages of the Grand Prix, lost it earlier on as they had to make that pit stop, of course, with that tyre situation, is currently on track to get that back. We've got Heischler having a go at making the move on Jericho Willis, who goes into the pit lane actually for a fresh set of intermediate tyres. It's about Verf though, who doesn't pull to the left hand side. It looks like they were, but no, they didn't go for it in the end, and they're still just gliding through the corners. What they realise is that Rare Winter is far enough behind that if they can just stay ahead even of Rare Winter, they will be able to get that position. Once Simaxon catches up, if they go for the overtake, then they can pit and still be safely able to go to the pit lane. They're hoping that the circuit dries up just a little bit and they can maybe gain a bit of time on the straight, but 10.1 seconds, now making it 9 seconds. Simaxon is catching up. Can't quite see the Ferrari driver in the distance just yet, but they will have a view within the next few corners. 8.7 seconds, and now you get to the middle sector where it really will make a difference with wet conditions. Now to 7, it will become 6 very shortly on your screen, and then we'll make it 5 within the next few corners. Would they even be ahead of the Ferrari driver by the end of the lap? Now they can see that red car up in front of them in the distance. That's going to be some extra motivation, and I think it might even happen by the end of the lap. Maybe Simaxon could be the race leader. Just gaining so much time in this part of the circuit as they will head to Sector 3, but just not able to get the traction. It's the Ferrari car. They're going to have to brake a lot earlier. Simaxon spots that very well. Wasn't easy to spot. It's very easy to get wrong. On the traction, they will have the advantage compared to that Ferrari, and a very heartbreaking moment there for the Scuderia. They will not be able to lead this Grand Prix. They're going to have to make a pit stop after all of that, unless they really still try and stay out right now, but there is literally no reason to stay out. They have to go into the pit lane, and that will be the Ferrari going in just about as they go over the curbing a little bit, but curbing a little bit is fine as long as they don't completely cut it. Now with no time penalties, Simaxon leads the Grand Prix once again. 27 out of 31 laps right now, not long to go, and they will be able to become the championship leader. The Red Bull team only having one driver today, but scoring the maximum amount of points. Just having a look at the fastest lap situation if we can, just to double check. Rare Winter currently has it as they went onto that soft tyre, so they will gain a little bit from that, of course. Verf makes that pit stop. Simaxon is now 30 seconds ahead, it can be confirmed. Rare Winter now 21 seconds, 19 seconds, 15 seconds. As you will see, the timings kind of sync up together now, and it makes a lot more sense. 13 seconds. Such a difficult situation. Will Verf be able to catch up just to try and prove a point and prove that they had the pace? I don't know, because really, in theory, 29 seconds, actually 32 seconds if you add the time penalty to Verf. Simaxon can just completely relax. They don't need to push. They can just take this home nicely. There is a bit of a disadvantage of going slowly. If you slow down too much in a race car, race cars don't really like to be driven slowly, and you will possibly end up causing more issues for yourself. If you go so slow and you have to rebuild all the revs up in that car, then you end up going to risk losing the car on traction, as you have to kind of build the traction a little bit more. So you don't want to go too slow, but you can lift and coast a little bit to just make sure you don't get too close to the walls on entry and exit. Indeed it does depend on the driver. We have a few controller players on the grid. We also have a few wheel players. Of course, wheel overall does give you an advantage. You do get slight advantages around certain circuits if you're on a controller. However, in theory, you could say that this circuit at Singapore with the traction zones can be a controller advantage track, but ultimately still a wheel will have the advantage over controller players. Of course, Tom Robb also in the chat is a controller player as well, very quick as well. I don't know how they do it, honestly. It's absolutely incredible. Simaxon leads the way, and they're still doing a very good job to stay ahead. They're actually breaking away or just maintaining the gap at this stage of the Grand Prix. Lap 28 out of 31. We go one lap earlier from when we last counted. Verf trying their best. They're going to score a decent amount of points at this stage. Rare Winter has given it a good shot, and they're currently on cue to score 15 points to their championship, which will be a decent amount on their first outing here. Sliding the front end through the corner, just really trying to get them to grip up. They finally grip up, then they straighten the car and get on the throttle. As you can see, that's the way they're driving the car. It's just the way F1.24 works. Unfortunately, in the wet conditions, it's the way you have to drive it. Just have to adapt. As a racing driver, that's something that you do have to do. Very loose on the rear under braking, but keeping it in a straight line quite well. And that is Heischler. Right now, P4 catching up. I say catching up. They don't actually catch up. That is going to be the lap car of Brediscool, who is a little bit further behind at this stage right now. Now, Joko Willis in P5. Looking to score another solid amount of points. P10. That will be, P5, 10 points it will be. Zora up ahead right now. These guys are about to get lapped by Heischler. They are ghost cars, of course, to the Alpine, but they are racing themselves. So they have to make sure that they don't make contact with one another, otherwise they will be in a bit of trouble. Brediscool is in this battle, of course. Pepe, unfortunately, not quite so much, but still giving it a good effort and really pushing on with this race, which we really do appreciate here at LSI. Thank you very much, Pepe, for giving it your absolute best. Now, Eichler not quite able to find their way through. It will be, of course, quite distracting to have the blue flag cars ahead of them. If the blue flag cars ahead do stay in front for too long, then they might end up getting themselves a penalty because of that. But it will be Heischler going for that move, as that was a mistake there from the Red Bull, or the Racing Bull. It will be Zora moving out the way, and they will brake a little bit early. I wanted to go quickly to the battle that we unfortunately didn't quite get to see. These guys are still side by side, and they do make contact with one another, even though they look like they're ghosted, as Heischler breaks away, and it is going to be a hell of a send there from Zora to try and stay ahead. Currently, no time penalties to the Canadian driver, whereas time penalty-wise for Brediscool, 9 seconds, so they have to try and be 9 seconds ahead within the next lap and a half of Zora at the moment, as they're incredibly slow as they go through the hairpin. The Racing Bull doing everything they can, but not quite so simple. Would they try and have a go into turn 14? Not quite so much. Very, very close to the rear end, as that is going to be a big shunt right there. Zora is going to get a front wing loss, going incredibly slowly through the turn, and the Racing Bull was not entirely expecting that. Makes contact. He's not going to be happy, of course. They didn't get damaged themselves. They just forced Zora into the wall slightly right there, and did, of course, chop that wing off, as the cars are struggling, both of them. Zora, of course, struggling with that damage, unfortunately. But these guys will be racing to the end as they go to the final stages of the Grand Prix here. Looking for the switchback is the Racing Bull. Now to the inside line. They'll get a shorter distance towards turn 5. Then it will all of a sudden be the inside there for Zora. Switchback again possible here for Brediscool, but not quite getting the traction. They've got the energy to catch up, and they might have a go at a move on the last few laps. They move to the inside, then to the outside as Zora goes defensive. Will they have a go for a send here as they go in towards turn 8? Not quite. Zora just defending for now. That is Zora having a defensive effort right now to stay ahead of the Racing Bull. The Racing Bull can't quite find a way through at this stage of the Grand Prix. Lol, yes, that is true. That is our aim, of course. We are definitely pushing towards that kind of vibe. If we can do, we do take things seriously. We did have a few issues, of course, to try and build up our grids for or after the F1.22 game was very catastrophic, and we've had to spend basically the entire of F1.23 and now into 24 to try and rebuild back up. But yeah, that is our aim. We do take things seriously, and we do look to try and improve more and more every time. It's not actually raining. It's a very slippery car here from Sir Maxon. That is why Verve tried to stay out for as long as they possibly could. Wouldn't have worked out in the end. But now it's going to be a few corners, and we will see Simatson crown themselves for the first time in LSI as a victor. Simatson comes around the final corners and will win the Singapore Grand Prix, taking the championship lead as they weave the car in glee as they cross the line. And a brilliant effort right here for Verve. Singapore was not kind to them in the end. They took the pole and they were incredibly quick on a very different strategy compared to everyone else. They gave it their best shot, but they will take that P2 in the end. Still an incredible effort for the Hungarian driver. They did an amazing job right there. Well done indeed. Rare Winter has got a few more corners to go, about a sector, and they will be able to finish this race in P3, which will not be too bad, of course, for their points in this championship. Will we see any fighting towards the end from these guys? I don't think it is going to matter. It won't make a difference. We won't see Zora have an opportunity into the next few corners. But we will see Rare Winter go across the line and finish in that P3 spot. We will see Heischler follow on soon as a higher tier driver. Of course, Jericho Willis will get promoted because of that, as Heischler mostly or mainly drives in the Friday tier, which is why they are higher tier driver. Of course, that is Jericho Willis scoring once again a solid amount of points to their championship. Williams are going to be happy with that one. And then it will be Zora, Bredescool, and Pepe finishing off the race. But this is the driver to watch after a crazy performance. The circuit is bone dry right now, but it's all a little bit too late for any kind of dry tyre to be put on. They made it perfect on the strategy there, did Sir Maxon. Everything that they needed to do right there. Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, lol. We'll go through the results. Simatson takes the win for Singapore. We've got Verf in P2, then Rare Winter taking that fastest lap on the softs earlier on. Jericho Willis in P4. We've got Heischler, Zora, Bredescool, Pepe, and then DNFing on the opening lap, unfortunately, was Terrence. We go through the race director just in case we need to, as we probably will. It is Singapore after all. And then we will go through the pit stop section as well. We will be back for the post-race interviews. We will see you in a bit. Hello everyone, welcome back to the post-race interviews of the Singapore Grand Prix. That was a hell of a long one. That was such a difficult one with the strategy, that's for sure. We will interview Sir Matson, the race winner and the new championship leader for the F1.5 EU tier. That was a tough race with that strategy. Can you take us through it?
Yeah, started on the mediums. The Ferrari guy started on hards. I had the better pace, but I knew that the hards will be faster on the long run. And it actually were, so I lost the position. We're trying to stay with him, then switch to hards and basically tried to do the undercut. And when it worked, the rain came in. I didn't expect it from the start, but it helped me really a lot because I would have probably lost this position to him. And a perfect pit moment for the pit was when I was in the pits, the DRS was turned off. So the conditions were perfect for the inters. I was trying to get the lead and
Go ahead, sorry.
Rain was falling. The rain was falling quickly. The conditions were getting worse and worse, and he just couldn't. The track lost around even 6 seconds or up, and I caught up to him.
Yeah, making that move. That was an awesome job from you. And you, like you said, you did kind of get that strategy kind of pretty much perfect. With your tyres. Also, an awesome move into the first corner on lap 1. That was really good. So well done on that one. It's not Austria because we've had a reschedule. Monza that we didn't get to do at the start of this season due to attendance will now be rescheduled for next weekend. Whether you can make that race or not, is that a circuit that you like?
I think I was preparing 2 weeks ago for it, so I'm pretty ready for it.
Nice. Should be good. Maybe look for another win, even extend your championship lead. That would be an awesome job. Thank you very much, Sir Maxon. You are the championship leader and you are a race winner in LSI. Enjoy it. We'll see you next time. And that's been it for the post-race interviews. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. We will see you next weekend for the F1.5 Italian Grand Prix. F1 will be on a break and we will return in 2 weeks' time for the Austrian Grand Prix, which will be a sprint race, of course. It's going to be an awesome one. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.